From the Fifth Quarter Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, you're listening to Coach Unplugged. Here are your hosts, Steve Collins and Drew Slemka.
That's the only thing I knew. I knew I wasn't going to out-coach people in our league. I knew I wasn't going to necessarily have better players. What I knew is I could outwork them. I could out-scout them. I could spend more time preparing everything for my guys, so we knew what some Prairie was going to do or Middleton was going to do. I could prepare for those specific teams. You know, we hand our kids a scout tape. We give them a scouting report. We handle it like a classroom. They bring a binder. They take notes. You know, it's just like my math classroom. It's no different. I think you can prepare them. Now, to be honest with you, probably 80% of this is for me and my staff, and probably 20% sinks in their heads. But I think it's good that, you know, hey, we've walked through Germantown's out-of-bounds play, or we know what Beloit's going to do in this situation. At least we've talked about it. So when I got to take that time out and I got to get them together, I'll say, you know what, they're going to run purple here, or they're going to run this specific play. And we've already talked about it. They've already seen the tape of it. They've taken the tape home. So they know what to expect at that point. You can never over-prepare. There's two camps of thought here again. One camp is I'm just going to do what I do and I'm not going to worry about my opponent. The other camp is, well, we're going to tweak what we do a little bit because we know what the other team's going to do. I'm in this camp. I'm in the camp that, we're still going to do what we do, but we're going to prepare for you. We're going to get ready for your zone defense. We're going to get ready for your offense, whatever specifically that you're doing. So I think you can't over-prepare. You can't spend too much time watching tape. Next thing is you got to teach your players how to win, okay? And this is going to depend on where your program is. You know, my first couple years when we weren't winning basketball games, I had to dump a couple teams that I didn't think we could beat on our non-conference schedule, and I had to go out and get some wins. I had to go out and find teams that I can beat that team, and get some wins, because I think what it does is it teaches the kids how to win, okay? It teaches them that this is what it feels like. Now, where my program is now, you know, like I told you before, we're going to Detroit, we've been to Minneapolis, been to St. Louis. Now I'm traveling, now we're doing other stuff to prepare us for the state championship. I'm not necessarily looking for wins. You know, I'm not convinced we might not win any of our non-conference games this year. But I think especially when you're building from the bottom up and you haven't won, you need to go out and find some wins. You need to convince your kids that they're good, that they're going to win basketball games, that they're going to be successful. And, you know, that's a big part of what we do. And what we've done over in the past. Expect the unexpected. And then I got a couple funny things with this one. If it can happen, it will happen. You know, this year the state tournament, we beat Bayport in the state semifinal game. I walk in the locker room after I talk to the press, and I got two starters in the locker room throwing up. Okay, my first year coaching, I would have freaked out. You know what I did? I grabbed our trainer, John McKinley, who's a great guy. I said, John, you got to get him to the hospital. You got to get him IVs. You need to take care of him. You need to get him on Tamiflu. You need to do whatever we need. We need them healthy for tomorrow. You know, lots of things happen. You got to expect the unexpected. This is where you got to develop your depth, what I was talking about before. You got to develop that 7 through 12 to be ready for the big game, because you never know. You know, our first year, probably my best team ever. We lost in state finals in 2004, and then Wesley Matthews broke his hand in the state semifinal game, and I'm sitting there and I was in denial. I didn't really think he had broken it. I thought he jammed it. I thought he'd be okay. He ended up having 8 turnovers. He never had 8 turnovers ever in his career, ever. But I wasn't willing to accept what had happened. You know, we've had twisted ankles. You know, I know Keaton Ankeville played with a broken foot and a stress fracture. You know, once you get to the point where you expect the unexpected, you know things are going to happen. You know people are going to twist their ankles. You can control those things. Develop your depth. Control any outside factors. I make my guys wear ankle braces. That's something I feel like I can control. You know, was it last year or the year before, Jerron, a week before the state tournament, twisted his ankle. He had an ankle brace on. The reason we were able to have him and he was able to have that tournament trail is because he had his braces on. You know, the things that you can control, them wearing hats when they're leaving the building, eating properly, all those things that you can control, try. There's going to be things that are unexpected that happen. You got to be ready for them and develop your depth. Develop 6 through 10, because I'm telling you, if it's a 4-month season, at some point you're going to need 6 through 10. It might be to only win a conference championship, might not be to go to the state championship, but you're going to need those guys. Somebody might get the swine flu or get sick or something. Who knows what's going to happen? But you got to expect it, and you got to be prepared for it. That's all about preparation. Find leaders. Picking the team is probably the most important day of the year for me. Okay, that number 14 and 15 guy at the end of the bench. That's extremely important. Those guys got to know that they're 14 and 15. They got to understand their roles. My rule of thumb in the past has always been, it's hard for me to keep seniors that aren't going to play. I have done it in the past, and I've also cut seniors that weren't going to play because they were juniors or sophomores that were better. So picking your team is extremely important. Okay. That day, Bob Suter, who's a Hall of Fame coach in the state of Wisconsin, always told me, picking a team is kind of like making soup. Some people like a little bit more potatoes. Some people like a little bit more onions. That day is going to be the 15 people or how many people you keep. That's going to be the people you spend the next 4 months with. And they better get along, and they better understand their roles and all the things that we've talked about. Talk on and off the court. Pick your general carefully. You got to find a leader that's going to be willing to talk. Probably a subscript of my pet peeves is kids that don't talk on the court. But that's something we can normally take care of. But you got to pick your general carefully. You got to pick that guy that's going to lead you to the promised land. Wesley Matthews and Dron Maiman are two leaders that were able to take me to a state championship, take our program to a state championship. They were unselfish players. They were generals. They led. They got in people's faces. A story, both times we won the state tournament, in 2005 when we won it, the group got together and they had a meeting. They called it. They didn't invite me. They called each other out. There were tears. There were people pointing at each other. There were people that were upset. And then we ended up going on a run and winning the whole thing after that. Same thing actually happened this year when we won it. They got together after we had lost the game and called each other out. And who did that? The leaders did that. The leaders developed that. And taught and basically called each other out. So I think that's an extremely important thing as far as a coach and as a player that you need to talk about. Okay, you need to find that unselfish player. You need to find that person that's going to lead you, that's going to call out Johnny when he's not playing defense or he's not doing his wind sprints. You need to find those leaders. And the day you pick the team is extremely important because you're picking your leaders. You're picking your role guys. You're picking the people that you're gonna spend the next 4 months with. Visualize. This is one that we talk about. We got to see it and we got to sell it. Okay. When you walk into the locker room, it says Road to the Kohl Center. That's where we play our state championship. Got a picture of it. That's what they see every day. We talk about it. We sell it. You have to convince your guys. Our first couple of years, it was a picture of the conference championship trophy. It wasn't a picture of the state tournament trophy. We weren't ready for that. Whatever you need to visualize, put in their locker, send it home, text it. You got all these new tools now. Twitter them, whatever you need to do, Facebook them. But you need to sell it to them. You need to sell them, and they need to see it. I text my guys all the time. Are we going to win this thing? Yeah, how bad do you want it? Are you willing to work hard? Whatever it is, you got to sell it to them. You got to convince them it's the most important thing in the world at that point in their lives. And then, locker rooms are great places to redo your locker room, put pictures up of what you want to do and where you want to achieve. And then the last thing is you got to be a little lucky. I said this before, but it always comes down to a handful of possessions. It really does. It comes down to those handful of possessions that we talk about during the season. And I'll pick a game in January, and it will be a 3-point game, and I'll take a timeout, and I'll say, you know what? It's going to come down to 2 possessions here whether we win the state title. And we're playing, at Janesville Craig on a Tuesday. So, it always comes down to it. We always play a possession game in practice. You got 3 possessions to score 4 points, or you're going to lose the state title. So I think you really need to talk about it. Kind of in closing, those are the kind of the key points, and let me make sure I haven't forgotten anything that I've talked about. Those are our core values. Those are the things that we talk about. I think this is a very psychological game. I didn't talk any X's and O's here at all. And I love to talk X's and O's, but we live in a society with kids that they're playing AAU and everyone's telling them how great they are and that they should all be starting and blah, blah, blah. I think as a coach, It's your job to get this group to come together, okay, to be a cohesive group. And I think the 20 points that we've come up with over time will get you to that point, will get you to be successful. And if there's anything, obviously, that you don't understand here, feel free to email me, coach@memorialbasketball.com, coach@memorialbasketball.com. I'll try to put that in the DVD and my contact information. If you have any questions about the stuff that we do, you want to see like what, our itinerary looks like at the state tournament, or, specific things we do with our playbook, or any of the 20 points that we've talked about, feel free to contact me. I love this game. It's given so much to me and my family, and to the players in our community, that if there's anything I can ever give back to you, feel free to contact me. I think these are what I've said is Memorial's core values. We've been successful. We've won state championships because I've gotten our community, our kids, our parents, and everyone to buy into these things. So, there's no magical thing that's going to help you win a state title. And every situation is a little different. But I think if you start from the ground up, you pick good players, good coaches, and a good school, I think you can be successful. So again, thank you very much for having me, and have a great night.